I was in quite a reflective mood at the weekend, and that got me thinking about an exercise that I used to do in workshops. I genuinely can't remember whether I came up with this exercise or whether I borrowed it from somewhere else. It's not important. It's a very simple yet very thought-provoking exercise. Now, I don't know whether this is going to be useful to you right now, but what I'm hoping is that it sticks and that somewhere it goes into the back of your mind and it stays there if it's not useful to you now, and that at some point in the future it'll pop into your mind and you'll remember it and you'll go through it, because it is incredibly powerful. The exercise is in two parts. As much as possible, while you're doing part one, put out of your mind that there is a part two, because this is an imagination exercise. This is about just letting your mind wander, and you can do that far better if you're not thinking that there's something else going to be happening at the end of it. Now, you've probably noticed when you read a book, there's very often a dedication in there, and that might be something like, I dedicate this book to my loving partner who's been there for me and put up with me while I've been locked away in the room for 6 months writing this book. Very often though, the dedication's to more than one person, and that might be, thank you to Mr. Brown, my history teacher, for getting me into the idea of history in the first place, because without you this book would never have happened. And thank you for the team of people who've read the proofs of the book and sorted out all my punctuation. You know the kind of thing I'm talking about. The first part of this exercise is about kind of drifting off in your imagination and imagine that you've just finished writing a book. And imagine that you're now, the only thing left to do is to write the dedication. And what I want you to think about is, who are you going to dedicate the book to? Now, it might be that there's one person overwhelmingly has been so supportive that without you the book wouldn't have happened. But for the purpose of this exercise, find more than one person. What would probably be ideal would be to find a list of around about 8, 9, 10 people, something like that. Now, it might be that 100 people spring into your mind, and that's fantastic. And if that's the case, go through the list and whittle it down until you get to about 10 people that you're going to dedicate your book to. That was part one, which was really simple. Part two is equally as simple, but it can be more difficult to put into practice, because what you've just come up with is a list of some of the most important people in your life. So my simple question is, do these people know that they're the most important people in your life? And when was the last time that you actually told them? Now, it might be some of them are very close to you, and in which case you're probably telling them all the time. But if there really is a Mr. Brown, the history teacher in there, who you haven't seen for 30, 40 years, he probably has no idea about what impact he's had on your life. And yes, if you ever write a book and write it in the dedication, he might find out. But why wait? I have a friend who does this very systematically. And what he does, he looks for people in his life that have been instrumental, especially people that he's lost contact with. And he writes them a letter to tell them how important they've been to him and to thank them for the part they've played in his life. Some people he never hears back from. Some people he hears back from and they say, it's almost like this letter came at the perfect time and thank you for thinking of me. You don't know how much this means to me. And some people probably think it's a bit weird, because it's not about trying to get back in touch with them. It's not about trying to rekindle a relationship. It's just about letting people know what an impact they've had into getting you to where you are right now. And recently a very poignant thing happened for him. He wrote a letter to somebody who'd been important to him and he hadn't had a lot of contact with recently. And he never heard back from the person. And then very shortly afterwards, sadly, the person he'd sent the letter to passed away very unexpectedly. And what my friend found out from a mutual friend is that when the person had received the letter, they were so overwhelmed by it, the first thing they'd done was go to see the mutual friend, and they'd read the letter out in tears, not realising what an impact they've had in other people's lives. And then for the rest of their short life after that, he carried that letter around with him in his wallet everywhere that he went. That's how easy it is to make an impact in other people's lives. Writing letters is not the only way to let people know that you appreciate them. I'm sure you can think of lots of other ways that you can do it as well. But if you were to write letters, what's important is the act of writing the letter, the act of trying to do something to have an impact, to brighten up somebody else's life. Because in my life, there's been lots of people who've had an impact. Some people in a small way, some people in a big way. I know that it's the same for you as well. What this is really about is about finding things that we can do to try to have an impact in other people's lives as well.